Boris Johnson has returned home from New York to face a hostile government. UK lawmakers were back at work after Britain's Supreme Court ruled the Prime Minister's suspension of Parliament was unlawful. Johnson challenged the opposition party to either oust him or stand aside and let his government deliver Brexit. Laura Kuenssberg with our partners at the BBC reports.
To lead often is to be alone. Boris Johnson on the tarmac clutching his red box of business. It was Boris Johnson's decision to suspend Parliament, found against the law. Boris Johnson racing back from New York to face MPs' anger. But on this dangerous road, the Prime Minister chose tonight to whip up the rancour himself.
Statement, the Prime Minister.
No regret, no remorse. He questioned the judge's ruling yesterday.
It is absolutely no disrespect to the judiciary to say I think the court was wrong to pronounce on what is essentially a political question.
He chose attack as the best form of defence rather than give answers, goading the opposition to bring him down.
Out of sheer selfishness and political cowardice, members opposite are unwilling to move aside and give the people a say. We will not betray the people who sent us here. We will not. That's what they want to do. We will not abandon the priorities that matter to the public. And we will continue to challenge those opposition parties to uphold democracy.
Some Labour MPs shouted, "You should be in jail," and shame. Jeremy Corbyn's response, he should go.
After yesterday's ruling, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister should have done the honourable thing and resigned. The government has failed to silence our democracy.
But he was resolute. Jeremy Corbyn won't take the chance of an election now, not until there's a guarantee we won't leave the EU without a deal next month.
He says he wants a general election. I want a general election. It's very simple. If you want an election, if he wants an election, get an extension and let's have an election.
But there were verbal punches back.
He can't control his own party. He can't decide whether he's for leave or for remain. He's being held captive by his colleagues. The electorate are being held captive by this zombie parliament and this zombie opposition. And he wants the entire country to be held captive in the EU after October the 31st at a cost of more than £1 billion a month. We say no. I say no. Let's get Brexit done and let's take this country forward.
The more savage it was, the more they roared. The Prime Minister had almost provoked his own side into backing him like this. If anything, that applause encouraged the opposition parties to slam him.
If my son can apologise for kicking a football indoors, surely the Prime Minister can have the humility to say sorry for misleading the Queen, misleading the country and illegally shutting down our democracy.
And at a time like this, don't bet on what might come next.
The opposition must unite to trigger a vote of no confidence to bring this chaotic government down.
Does he still believe it to be right and proper to seek to impeach a Prime Minister who has been judged to mislead the public?
There was nothing still about tonight. Frustrations erupting.
We've seen the political establishment in this House, the commercial establishment, and now the judicial establishment go against the will of the people. They are angry, They feel thwarted by the establishment.
Those who claim to defend parliamentary democracy are in fact putting it at grave risk by alienating a large proportion of the population who fear that this House is trying to block a democratic referendum result that we promised to honour.
Disdain from the Prime Minister's former colleagues.
He's pitting Brexit against Remain, young against old, Scotland against England, and people against the Parliament.
And maybe fear too.
Many of us in this place subject to death threats and abuse every single day. And let me tell the Prime Minister that they often quote his words: surrender act, betrayal, traitor. And I, for one, am sick of it.
I think, Mr. Speaker, I have to say, Mr. Speaker, I have to say, Mr. Speaker, I've never heard such humbug in all my life.
The outrage at his response louder than Boris Johnson's attempt to make himself heard. More acute when the murdered MP Jo Cox's successor pleaded with him too.
Will he, going forward, moderate his language so that we will all feel secure when we're going about our jobs?
The best way to honour the memory of Jo Cox, and indeed the best way to bring this country together, would be, I think, to get Brexit done.
Tonight, at least, it's almost impossible to imagine those inside being able to agree on whether it's night or day. The government's top lawyer earlier declared it over.
This Parliament is a dead Parliament. It should no longer sit. It has no moral right to sit on these green benches.
This Prime Minister to talk about morals and morality is a disgrace!
When outrage is in fashion, agreement the country may crave is hard to find.